Unsurprisingly, Tank Davis knocks out Frank Martin in round 8. I say unsurprisingly because most people predicted this. I know I certainly did, alongside the people who I spoke to about this fight. I didn't make a pre-fight video on this one, I just didn't get round to it. And I got to be honest, I wasn't really that interested in this fight. As I say, it's fairly predictable in the breakdown for this one because you've got Frank Martin who's, yeah, he's good, he's capable, but he's not spectacular. Probably had just enough boxing IQ and skill, just enough athleticism to win a few rounds, extend the fight into the latter portion. But eventually, the better athlete, the better boxer, the much harder puncher in Gervonta Davis would get him out of there, would eventually get to him. And that's exactly what happened. The early rounds, I want to say Martin did quite well. I gave him 1 through 4, maybe even the 5th as well. Although I think that one might have been a swing round based on memory. Martin, he opened well, clearly winning the first couple of rounds for sure. Good timing off of the back foot with the jab and the left hand, sometimes throwing it to the body. Yeah, he was doing what you kind of expected. He was using his feet, which I know is kind of one of his more renowned skills, is his footwork and his ability to move. And he certainly needed it because Davis, he wasn't really hanging about. He wasn't too urgent, but he was definitely trying to press Martin. I think Davis understood that he couldn't just stand at long range. He had to close down the distance. But maybe the inactivity, Davis wasn't firing on all cylinders. But I don't think it wasn't really concerning. I don't think Davis was very relaxed. He just didn't have the urgency, but he was still pressing forward. I guess you could say it was patience, because Frank Martin was on the ball early on because Davis did attempt some offense in spots, but Martin was able to block, he was able to move away, he was able to slip, that kind of thing. And so he wasn't really getting hit too clean. And Davis, as I say, he was starting to get a bit more of a feeling for the kind of range that Martin was working at. And then we started to see him open up. He was using his active guard a bit more, managing the distance well, as I say. And he was getting closer. And even in, rounds 1 and 2, just any attempt that Davis made, any shots he'd throw, even if he'd slip a punch, you could just see that the difference in speed and sharpness and explosiveness. Davis is really like a really sharp and explosive athlete. And you could just see the difference. Like Martin's athletic and he's quick, but Davis just has that cutting edge. And you saw that. And I felt like the writing was on the wall. As soon as you'd see the way Davis slipped a punch and you saw how rapid it was, how sharp it was, I was just thinking in my head, it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time until Martin slows down just a touch. But Davis, because he's not really expending much energy, if he counters it and he lands, it's going to be serious trouble for Martin. But it took a little bit longer, but Davis was getting closer. And when we got to 4, 5, and 6, even though Martin was still in the fight, I definitely got the sense that Davis was getting closer. And yeah, it was a sign of things to come because Davis was opening up more. He was trying more, and Martin, the footwork was starting to leave him. Now he didn't necessarily have flashy footwork, but it was definitely it was pronounced. Like he was moving a fair bit early on, but all of a sudden that footwork and that movement, that mobility, has started to leave Martin a little bit. And going into the 7th round, this is when Davis, I thought, was really getting a foothold, and it was becoming his fight. And Martin almost, it seemed like he was unraveling fairly quickly. And in that 7th round, he was actually hurt, I felt, by an exchange of left hands. They exchanged left hands, the two southpaws, and Davis's landed pretty flush on Martin's face. And credit to Martin, because I think he showed a good poker face, because based on what I saw, he was hurt. And he kept his composure, but all of a sudden we've seen that lack of movement, that lack of foot movement and footwork really speak volumes, I think. Because it's one thing to put on a brave face and stay composed, and act like, oh yeah, I'm fine. That they didn't really rock me too badly. But when your feet aren't moving and you've planted your feet and you're trying to stand your ground, I think that says a lot, because it's like, okay, you've been hurt badly enough that you don't trust your feet, so you're holding your ground a little bit. I think that's what I saw in Martin anyway. But he made it out of that round and got to round 8, and yeah, in relatively short order, Frank Martin was hit with a big left hand and he was flat on his back. Martin actually got cornered in one of the corners, and that was starting to become a bit more frequent throughout these slightly later rounds. And Davis was trying to land the chopping left to the head and the body. He was stiff arming Martin, trying to hold him in place, which he was doing fairly well. But Martin was moving just enough, blocking just enough. And then all Davis did, he just took the initiative. He casually backed off, came back into range slightly to draw the lead hand from Martin, and then from there, just led with a right hook into a left uppercut. The left uppercut, that hurt Martin. He was pretty dazed from that one. And then from there, he was completely open. So then Davis went for the left hand, the left cross. And yeah, Frank Martin was on his back, looking up at the lights, and he was out of it. I don't think you can really argue with that stoppage. He was not going to get to his feet and be in any shape to carry on. So yeah, as I say, it's fairly predictable. I don't think there's really all that much to report on. I didn't really see anything that was majorly concerning. Yeah, Tank Davis, he was maybe just a tad pedestrian to start off with, but I feel like part of that was maybe intentional. Get Martin to move around a lot, maybe expend a little bit of anxious energy, because Martin, you could tell that he didn't want to get hit by Tank. I mean, who would? Tank hits like a tank. And I believe that these two had actually sparred previously. So if that's true, Martin has felt firsthand Tank's power, I'm sure. And he was moving a lot. And yeah, use up that energy. Davis, yeah, he might have been losing the first couple of rounds, but he wasn't really getting hit clean. It was really just because Martin was a bit busier. And as I say, it was good, solid scoring work, but yeah, nothing majorly spectacular or anything like that. And then as soon as Davis warmed up, his boxing started flowing a bit more. His timing was there. His active guard was going, and he was more willing to attempt his offense, the big offense. And as soon as he landed cleanly, that is, with a full-blooded power punch, that was it. The fight was over. So yeah, not really all that much to report on. I'd say that you could probably miss this fight unless you're, an avid Tank follower or Martin follower, if he has a fan base. Yeah, you could probably miss this one. It really wasn't all that entertaining. Not much to write home about. If you've seen the stoppage, you've seen the highlight. So yeah, probably best to leave it at that regarding the review of the fight. All I will say is Tank is obviously being marketed as the face of boxing, which I think is a stretch, and quite a big stretch at that. But the inactivity of Tank Davis, which I touched on previously, is not going to help him, because time is undefeated and Tank has to get a move on if he hopes to cement any kind of boxing legacy, all-time great boxing legacy. Because there's been talk previously about how if, Tank, I think himself or his people have spoken about, if he retires now, he's going to be recognised as a great. No, I don't think he is. His body of work really doesn't warrant that kind of praise, in my opinion. So if he hopes to really cement a genuine legacy, then he has to get a move on, and taking 14 months out of the ring is not going to help him. It's not going to help his performances, and it's not going to help his legacy in the long run if he's not fighting top guys and getting things done. And now I don't have a problem. Like this Martin fight, I thought was acceptable. Martin's a good, solid fighter. He's on the come up himself, but is he the top tier opponent? Maybe this win ages fairly well, but we'll have to see. But as of now, Tank beat a guy who almost everyone predicted he'd beat. And he did so in good fashion. That's undeniable. But let's start to see Tank rolling the dice now, I think. He's not a baby anymore. He's supposed to be a multiple weight world champion. And so let's start to see championship level fights. And I know Tank Davis really has some of the worst fans in boxing, because they carry on like he's already the greatest of all time, when this guy has done, not all that much. And now there's a lot of potential there for sure, but he's spent there have been so many stretches of inactivity or shenanigans outside the ring. Let's just see this guy take on the best available opposition and see how he fares. So, yeah, let's start to actualize some of that potential. But yeah, that's my take on this fight for now. If you've seen it, what did you think? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. But for now, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next video.